I think it's funny because for like a year, I talked about how, hey, we're going to be doing this Malazan read along. And now that it's here and I'm in between Malazan books right now and I don't want to break my own schedule, I'm like, what do I fill those gaps with? So it's weird. I spent all that time kind of being intimidated by Malazan. Now I'm like, I got to find stuff to fill the gaps so I don't start early. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update as we are rolling through January. We're going to talk about the week that was, the week that will be, and as always, guys, we're going to begin with what am I reading? Now, I said last week I was reading The Hobbit. I finished it the day after, so I finished this last weekend, so I don't really know about if I want to say I finished it this week, but guys, this annotated edition, if you haven't, check it out because, like I said, it made the reread almost like a brand new experience. Learning a lot of the little side notes and stuff that Tolkien had, where he came up with the ideas and a lot of lore and history that if you weren't like one of those people who's examined the Silmarillion, like page by page, line by line, numerous times, you might not have known. So it's lots of good information for the Tolkien fanatic in your household, and I am one of those. I also finished the Drawing of the Three. Yes, this was supposed to happen in February because this is going to be the Into the Multiverse for February. Guys, just as good as I remembered. Like I said, this is the first time I am rereading these first four Dark Tower books since 1997. So it's very exciting times. Just as good as I remember. It's such a page turner. I mean, I could not stop read it. I was like, I'll just pick it up a little bit while I work through the other book I'm reading right now. And I ended up finishing it before I finished that book. So, yeah, I can't wait to talk more Dark Tower on the channel. You guys know I love King, obviously, but Dark Tower is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. And it started really with this book. Because the first book I was like, that's pretty good. And this is a book where I said, holy hell, this is something amazing. And I'm going to talk about why. Still every bit as good as it was in my memory. And in my memory, like I said, this was my favorite of the seven. So I'll be interested to see if that sticks as I go through it. And I am also working my way through Howling Dark. I got about, I don't know, 100 plus pages left. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this is a tough read. I mean, it's thick. And I don't mean it's tough as in like I'm sludging through. I mean that like it's not anything you can rush. I mean, if you think, oh, in a week you've read like that many 600 pages, but it's his writing style is so heavy that I really don't think you can fly through this. Very, very dense. I know that dense is a word that's kind of getting overused on this channel at this point because of Malazan, but I can't think of another word to describe that series. The first one, I felt like it was pretty grounded. This one, you're planet hopping all over the place. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Betrayal, backstabbings, negotiations, stuff like that. Lots of stuff, and it isn't anything like I expected. I think if you're going into it expecting like Star Wars or Red Rising, it's probably not what you're going to get. I felt like it was headed there with book one, but he's completely turned that on its head in book two, and it's doing its own little thing, which I'll probably talk about when I finish. Let's go on into what am I going to read. Now, obviously, when I finish Howling Dark, something I decided when I did my Michael Crichton video this past week was I'm going to try to fit some of these in now that I found myself with this extra reading time, which is funny, going back to work and you found more reading time than you had before. But I'm going to reread some of these Michael Crichton books. I'm going to do them in publication order under his own name, so no John Lane novels, just his stuff as Michael Crichton. So I'm beginning with Andromeda Strain. I'm going to pick that up in February. I got it over here. I got it part of a collection here with Terminal Man and Great Train Robbery, and that's going to be the first three that are going to be in that. I'm planning right now to do one per month, so if people want to join me, they can. And if you're saying, oh, I don't have room for that, his early novels were like less than 200 pages, so it really doesn't require a ton of time. I know that we talk all the time about Michael Crichton was so smart and so scientific, but he put it in such simple layman's terms that everybody can understand. So they're not heavy reads. They're good palate cleansers. So if you're not really into King and you've never checked out Crichton, I encourage you for sure at least try Andromeda Strain with me here next month because lots of stuff to talk about there. Then I'll be going back to Farseer and Royal Assassin. I really, really enjoyed the first book. This one's a little meatier. I see each one of these get a little bigger. It seems like every one that goes along, kind of like Malazan that way. But I enjoyed the hell out of the first one. I'm going to talk about it sometime next week. But then I'll be picking up that. And I think kind of like littering in just extra time. Maybe I need like a little bit of a break or something like that. I'm going to go back to the Thrawn trilogy. I said last week I read books 1 and 2 last year and then just stopped. I love the Thrawn trilogy, and I want to go ahead and finish that reread of it. But that's really what I've got for what I'm going to read here in the near future. Let's talk about this week on the channel. It was kind of Gardens of the Moon closeout week, and this is going to happen at the end of every Malazan book. I think someone commented lately, is that all you're going to do on the channel anymore is Malazan videos? I was like, guys, man, I've done 4 Malazan videos out of 18 that I've released this month. Calm down. You know, it's that's going to be the premier thing on this channel for the next 2 years. That is the biggest deal. The read-along is going to take spotlight. But again, I think for the first month, since we only had 1 month for Gardens of the Moon, yeah, you're going to expect a little bit more. I did 2 spoiler talks. I did my standard non-spoiler review, and then I did my Malazan vet conversation. Now, the non-spoiler review, that's just my traditional review. I didn't plan to do the spoiler talks. But what I liked about the non-spoiler review is Steven Erikson himself commented on it, a very, very long one. And it kind of sucks that he only commented on one of the criticisms I had. But it made a lot of sense. I'm talking about the narrative shifts and how it was kind of a goof by the publisher, not his fault. But he is adamant that he does not write grimdark. So there we go. But I will say I just really appreciate how engaging. You guys know I love an author that will engage with us peasants, as I put it. So anytime you're going to have an author going to drop in the comments, watch your content, that's always a really cool thing. And anytime you get a chance to talk with a Malazan veteran, that's how I plan to close out each one of these books after I go through them. And I had Iskar Jirak on, who I think has the best Malazan channel on YouTube. In fact, he was one of the ones who convinced me to read it. His video about, hey, you finished Wheel of Time? Here's why you should read Malazan. And a really good video that I think that anyone who was kind of on the edge might have just said, hey, you know what? I think maybe it's time. So it was awesome that I planned on having him first, and I'm glad that he was able to come on a Sunday morning and talk to me. That was really awesome of him. Of course, it didn't release until Thursday, but still, it doesn't matter. So next month, we're going to have, not next month, March, because the next book, Deadhouse Gates, goes from February to March. So the end of March, I'll have on Philip Chase, my personal favorite booktuber. I'm sure you guys know who Philip Chase is if you watch this channel, because I've talked about him a lot lately. I just think he's a great dude, and I think his channel is awesome, and I can't wait to pick his brain about Deadhouse Gates, a book that people seem to absolutely love, or it turns them off of the series. I'm pretty sure I'm going to fall in the former, but we shall see. And then we're going to go from there. I know that a lot of people have been kind of disgruntled about me saying I was going to close those threads for Gardens of the Moon on the Discord. I mean, that's why we have a read-along, guys. But here's the good part about that. Gardens of the Moon is the only one that has 1 month. Everything else has 2 and sometimes 3 months between books. So you'll have plenty of time. So if you haven't finished Gardens of the Moon yet, hey, do it when you can. Then you got to the end of March to finish Deadhouse Gates. I talked about Michael Crichton. I did my top 10 Michael Crichton books. It's something I said I wasn't going to do unless I had time, but it's not hard for me to talk about Michael Crichton and talk about Michael Crichton ad nauseum. And I think I've done that plenty. But yeah, it was a tough list for me to make. But I think the feedback that I wanted from that was that there are people that are interested in rereading or reading Michael Crichton for the first time. So that's something that kind of influenced me to say, hey, I'm going to kind of do this slow reread again with his stuff, kind of do a 1 per month, kind of fitting it in. And that's kind of, it's not going to be a hard 1 per month like I do with the Into the Multiverse. And I'm not necessarily doing an Into the Multiverse thing with Michael Crichton, but you know what? I'll review each one that I read, so that's encouraging for me. It's something that I just kind of wanted to do. I wasn't sure if there was enough interest, but it seems like I'll base off that video there was enough interest, and I'm just excited about the new people that are going to be reading Michael Crichton for the first time, because that's the goal here. I don't want him to fade into obscurity, because he is probably my second favorite author of all time behind Stephen King. So I am always willing and able to help others discover his works, as well as talking about Lycanius. Now, a new series that I want to say, I started with Unpopular Opinion. I've only done like 2 episodes on it. It's because, I don't think that there's a lot of books that I love that others hate, or I hate that others love. There's a handful. So I haven't really done a lot there, but something I want to do going forward is a series called The Good and the Bad. And it's where I do a series I think is good enough that I think you should read it, but there's enough criticism there for me to say, hey, if you don't like this, you might not like it. And that's kind of what I did with Lycanius there. I definitely think it's a series you should give a shot. But it is very clear this is a first-time author who might have bit off a little more than he could chew with his ambition for this series, because it was a hell of a debut, but it obviously suffered a lot of problems because of that. And that's just kind of what I talked about. I was mostly positive. I think I had way more pros than cons about the series. Apparently, people thought it was me throwing shade at Wheel of Time. Definitely not, guys. I love Wheel of Time. What I don't love is the kind of gatekeepery Wheel of Time folks who act like any other fantasy series that has magic in it is stealing from Wheel of Time, and so they won't read it. That's kind of what I meant there. I compared the Forsaken to the Venerate in that book and just said that I like the way that he did it better. And guys, it's been well on record. I've done like 40 Wheel of Time videos on here, and I say probably about 30 of them I talk about how goofball I think the Forsaken were. So that's nothing new. So if you've missed that in the past, that's nothing that I've ever hid. It doesn't mean I don't love the series. I just never took the Forsaken seriously. But again, that is where we are. Let's talk about a little bit of next week plans. I already talked about I'm going to be doing a review for Assassin's Apprentice. I wasn't going to do individual reviews for the Robin Hobb books because, like I said, I don't like to do series. Because I feel like you do non-spoiler, you're starting to say the same things over and over again. But I felt like there was enough to talk about with book one that I could do a review for. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to do one for every single Robin Hobb book. Most likely, I'll do one for Assassin's Apprentice, and then I'll wrap up Farseer. That's unless Royal Assassin just blows my mind so much I have to talk about it. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I liked Assassin's Apprentice enough that I want to talk about it. I want to talk about why I enjoyed it, and it's more than just puppy dogs, even though that does help just a little bit. Gonna wrap up January 2020. I know that's always an exciting video for people. Slow month. It's kind of expected. November, December were huge months for the channel, so I expected a little bit more regression to the mean. So we're gonna talk about that, and then something, guys. I'm so sorry I'm gonna do this. I made my TBR video in January. What I said was I only like to do one of these per quarter. Well, what I didn't anticipate was my reading speed actually increasing because, like I said, I have a commute now and I carpool, so I get to read during that time, and then I have an hour lunch break, so I'm getting almost 3 hours of uninterrupted reading time per day, guaranteed. So yeah, my reading pace has sped up. So I've already read some of that stuff from February, and I've looked at my schedule. I'm like, I've got room to fit other stuff in. So I started my TBR really, really conservative for the beginning of the year because I didn't know what it was going to be like with full-time work again. So I've had to add some new books in there, move some stuff up. Like I've moved a lot of the Robin Hobb books up and stuff like that. So what I'm going to be doing is kind of a reshuffle. I'm going to just kind of update what I'm doing for February and March. There's some new things on there. Like I said, there's some things that have moved up, and a couple of new things that I've kind of thrown in there just because, like I said, I found myself with a lot more reading time than I anticipated. So it'll be the last time I do that. Going forward, I'll stick to just my one per season update of my TBR. And then I'm going to do something, you guys might not like this. Some of you might, most of you probably won't. Is every once in a while I like to talk about something that isn't about books. Okay, so I have a segment called Off the Books. I've only done a couple. I did my favorite sci-fi TV shows. And what else did I do? I think my favorite horror movies. Is that what the other one was? Anyway, I'm going to be doing Off the Books number 3. And what Off the Books number 3 is going to be is my 10 favorite video games of all time. Now, again, I know that might not be anything that a lot of you are excited about, but it's okay to take a break once in a while and talk about some other media that I love. So I'm going to do that, and I have no idea what I'm going to say because that is a tough list. Where do you divide between an amazing game and your nostalgia for stuff that you played when you were younger? So I'm probably going to be showing my age in that one when I talk about the Konami code a lot or something like that. But that's kind of what I got on the plans for next week. Let's talk about a little non-book stuff here. A couple of TV and movie talk things. Do you know there's not only 2 Game of Thrones spin-off series planned. There are 3 Game of Thrones spin-off series planned at HBO. Look, I get it. Brand recognition. I get that. So you want to kind of take advantage of that. I get that, HBO. You kind of poison the IP a little bit, where I think you need to take a little bit of a break, because right now I think you're going to get a lot of people. Sure, yeah, a lot of people will tune in, but you know what they're going to be? They're going to be very, very critical. Because of the way that you ended Game of Thrones. So I don't know. I say I feel like HBO is kind of falling in that Disney Plus gripe that I have, where they're not taking chances anymore. They're not really taking very many risks. They're just kind of just betting on a sure thing, and I don't know necessarily that that's a sure thing. When you got that much money, you are the premier premium channel out there. I feel like you should be taking a chance. Look at all these fantasy series behind me. Do you know how many of those have not been optioned that you could be picking up and giving a shot? That's what Netflix is doing. Let's talk about Netflix. Netflix is doing Shadow and Bone. That's Lee Bardugo series, which I have not read. And I don't know how you guys feel about it. I don't know anything about the series at all. I had said that I would kind of try to read it. Does that make sense? Try to read it before the series came out on Netflix. They put out their teaser the other day. Didn't really show very much except a deer with a really crazy set of horns. I don't really know. But I want to give it a shot just because, hey, it's Netflix. I trust them a little bit. Yes, I know it's probably not going to be aimed towards me, but I still wouldn't mind checking out, just seeing. It's got Ben Barnes in it. I like him. I think he's a good actor. That's Prince Caspian, man. So I'll check that out. But again, Netflix is taking chances. I feel like none of these others are taking chances. But should I add Shadow and Bone to my TBR? It comes out in April. Should I add that first book to my TBR for February and March? Let me know. Let me know what you think. Because the worst case scenario, say I don't like it, it'll be a lot of fun to talk about if I don't like it. All right. That should be fun comments. Let's talk about Joss Whedon. Stick to HBO here for a second. There's this show that Joss Whedon was doing called The Nevers for HBO. And look, this is old news that he left the show. Why it came back up and I want to talk about it is because they found a showrunner to replace him. Why I want to talk about it is just like, full disclosure, guys, in case you don't know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, favorite TV show of all time. Obviously, that's what made Joss Whedon. Okay, that is, yeah. I mean, well, from casual audiences, the Avengers made Joss Whedon, but for us oldies, I think we grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer at some point, and it's a show that I think has aged wonderfully. I rewatched it a dozen times at least. Rewatching it again with my 8-year-old right now. It's a great series. And it was one of those things after Avengers was so big, and I was like, well, it's great for Joss. I mean, it's really great for him because I feel like he's become the household name that I felt like he deserved to be for the longest time, not just king of the nerds. But I was like, I think that he really excels at TV, and will he never do TV again? Because I think he can do a character arc over the course of a television season like no one else can. And so I was excited about this, and then he left. And, regardless of why, there's all the stories about him, stuff like that, I'm not getting into any of that stuff. I'm just saying I'm sad that I don't know if he's ever going to work in TV again. I hate that, Dollhouse, right when it was starting to get good, it was when it got canceled. We all know about Firefly at this point. I just thought this could be the shot to get him back on TV. And I don't know now. He's using the whole I want to spend more time with family line. And that's usually what people say when they're just going to go home and count their Benjamins, So it sucks if he's just done with creating. But hopefully he'll make a comeback eventually. I don't know anything really about the Nevers. I just know it said if Joss Whedon was the showrunner and it was a television series, I was going to give it a try. Godzilla vs. Kong finally had the trailer release. And yes, it's coming straight to HBO Max. Also coming to the theater too. Watch a trailer, I'm excited. I mean, I watched the men in the rubber suits fighting Godzilla versus King Kong when I was a kid, and it was just like, that was like Tyson Holyfield. That was like a big moment. So the trailer looks good. There's just a couple of things I don't really understand. Why did they set Godzilla up as like the protector of Earth in the last movie, only to have him look like the villain in this movie? I mean, I know that they're real big about someone's going to win. This isn't going to be Batman v Superman. They're not going to shake hands because their mothers have the same name and then go fight a bigger bad. So they want one of them to win. I get that. But again, you spent the whole last King of the Monsters setting up Godzilla as Earth's protector, and now he's a bad guy. I don't get it. My theory is it's actually Mechagodzilla. I don't know. I don't want to get too heavy into that. But the trailer looks awesome. And all I'll say is, remember when Freddy vs. Jason came out? And here's the thing. That movie had all kinds of problems. But you know what it didn't have a problem with? The fight was good. They fought for like a half hour. And it was a good fight. That's what I want with this. I want to make sure that, okay, no matter who's going to win any of that stuff, why they're fighting, I don't care. Give me very little human time. Don't dominate the movie with the humans. and I want to see these two Goliaths fight. And I want this to be a good fight, not a 5-minute thing and then it's over. I want it to be a good fight. You know, we had to wait this long for it. At best, be a good fight. Lastly, I did maybe a questionable parenting decision. There's this movie called Excalibur. Came out in the early 80s. Lots of actors you probably know in it. Gabriel Byrne has Liam Neeson in it. Diane Warren? I can't think of her name. Anyway, lots of people that before they were stars kind of thing. But I think it is someone who loves the Arthurian legend. And it was a movie that I always really appreciate. I read more to Arthur in high school. And I was really excited to watch that movie. And I've always thought it was the best. Every King Arthur movie they've tried to do since then, I've always been like, it's not as good as Excalibur. It's not as good as Excalibur. And I wanted to show it to my kid because he really loves Zelda. And I'm like, you know, where they get the idea about the Master Sword, pulling the sword from the stone, all that stuff. You ever heard of King Arthur? He's like, no. You ever heard of Excalibur? He's like, no. You ever heard of Merlin? He's like, no. I'm like, what am I doing? So I thought this would be the perfect way to teach him. However, it is a movie that has some gratuitous scenes in it. So me with my fine editing skills, I did a couple of edits on the movie and we were able to watch it and he liked it quite a bit. And I think it's just one of those kind of things that anytime you can turn a movie into something educational, because you know, he's going to learn about the Arthurian legend eventually in school, I'm sure, at one point. And you know what? I feel like, hey, you'll have a little bit up here. You'll have a little bit of knowledge. You'll be the kid in class being like, oh yeah, Merlin and Uther and Arthur and Igraine and Guinevere and Lancelot and all that. He'll know all these things. So, but about the movie, it's fantastic. It's aged so well. The soundtrack is superb. And I think some of the performances in it, you know, a lot of people might consider them over the top, but I love it. I love it. The guy who plays Merlin in that is just fantastic. He has a voice like every crazy, wily cartoon character you've ever heard. He's just awesome. So if you haven't ever watched that movie, guys, I say please check it out because I think it's really great. But you got the young kiddos. You might be careful because like I said, there are a couple of gratuitous, I'll leave it at that, gratuitous scenes in there that might be shocking. But the thing is, I think the movie's only PG-13. Amazing because it does have nudity in it. So different time. But guys, that was my week. How was your week? What are you up to? What are you reading? What are you playing? What are you listening to? All these things and more. Drop in the comments, guys, and have yourselves a great weekend.